I'm just going to show you about the different injectors that you can use. So for quite a while people have been using RX7 injectors. The reason for that is they are exactly the same externally as the standard ones, and you know, once you fit them they look identical, they plug in the same. There are two sizes of these, 460cc or 550, depending on if it's the RX7 non-turbo or the turbo version. So we're going back to the Series 2 RX7, which is, I think, 1986 they came out. There's nothing wrong with these, they're a good injector. Cheap to get hold of, although they're certainly more popular to find these in other countries, particularly America. You can get them on eBay quite easily. Now you do need to know that there's two, I don't know why, but Mazda did two versions of this injector. They look identical, they've even got the same part number, but there's a high impedance version, which is what you want, and a low impedance version. So you don't want the low resistance. You can tell because of this notch. Make sure you can actually see what I'm doing, if it will focus there. There we are. So this notch is to the side rather than being dead center. That's how you can distinguish whether it's a high impedance or low. So the low version, the notch is in the middle, and you can see this one's on the side. It's not focusing. Anyway, I think you've got the idea of that. So that's the same as the Daihatsu plug. It will plug straight on, high impedance, and this is a 550. But the problem is with this size is you won't easily get a good idle. It will just be too rich. You know, if you're using the common sort of E-managed blue piggyback, you won't be able to trim the fuel back enough with this injector. So this is perfectly good if you've got an aftermarket ECU. You'd be able to manage it better, but it would still be you'd still struggle to get a nice mixture at idle, but it would certainly give you enough fuel for big power. The 460cc is a better bet. Again, it looks the same. I think a slightly different colour, red. Still, these are sort of, they do change colour over the years, slightly purple. But anyway, so like I say, if you are looking at these online on eBay and places, secondhand, just check that the notch is to the side to be sure it's the high impedance version. You can't run a low impedance injector on a piggyback system where you're still using the Daihatsu ECU. It will burn out if you plug in low impedance. Now, be recently brought to my attention by Ross Newman. Mazda RX8 injectors are a much better option these days, it seems. They're a more modern design. It still fits the fuel rail, and the length is the same. I know they look a bit different, but the length is the same. You'll need to change the plug to the later type oval plugs, which are quite easy. You can get these adapters quite easily. There's this sort of old conventional EV1 style connector, they call these, which is what Daihatsu uses. So it's actually, apart from having the bit of excess wire, that's just as easy. So there's 3 different RX8 injectors. They're all high impedance. That's good. And the yellow ones here are 425cc, measured at 3 bar fuel pressure. So that's what most people will want for more fuel without going mad. They do a blue version, which is 540cc. So again, there you've got plenty of fuel for pretty much anyone's project plans. If you don't want to go, if you only want a small increase in power, I would say the best option is actually just to leave the standard injectors but raise the fuel pressure, which is perfectly okay as long as you've got a decent pump. The standard pump isn't particularly strong at higher pressures, and also they're so old now that you're going to have more than likely come across some problems with the pump. So fit a decent pump, don't have to go mad, but a fairly reasonable quality pump. Raise the pressure of the standard injectors. If you go to 3 bar base fuel pressure, the standard injector will flow about 320cc, 315 to 320. And if you were to go to 4 bar fuel pressure, which is of course quite a bit higher than standard, but if you've got a way to control that with a piggyback ECU, you can calibrate that quite easily, and then the standard injectors will actually flow 370cc. So that's fairly, you're going to get quite a bit of extra fuel there. I wouldn't go any higher than 4 bar personally in terms of base fuel pressure. So I've actually got some notes here. There we are, 295cc at the standard fuel pressure. I actually put 315, but I worked out later that it's actually about 320cc if you run 3 bar fuel pressure, or 370 at 4 bar. The RX7 injectors, there's the part numbers. Again, they do look the same, and do watch out for the different low impedance or high impedance versions. And the RX8, so there's 3 different types: red, yellow and blue. I'd say most people would not even want to have the reds because 350cc at 3 bar, it's hardly any bigger than standard. It's not worth the hassle. But yellows and blues, they're going to be the popular ones people are going to want. And the good thing with the RX8, because they are practically worthless now, there's tons of these injectors available. Buy some genuine ones second hand. That's going to be far better than buying these cheap Chinese clones that are all over the place on eBay. And if you're buying a set for £30 or £40 brand new, they're not going to be genuine. I don't know what these would cost at Mazda if you went to a Mazda dealer, but I expect they would be quite a bit of money each. But there's so many RX7s in scrap yards, and they've just become RX8, sorry, they've just become worthless. So there's plenty being stripped. So Ross has tried these recently in his car. He's going to be running a E-Manage Blue piggyback, and on the first reports he says it starts lovely, idles lovely, and these are reckoned to be much better in terms of the response time and the spray pattern, which figures. It's a 30-year an injector that's about 30 years newer in terms of design. So there we are. That's a bit more info hopefully people can use.